I'm Kevin Casey. I'm a professional mixed martial arts fighter. And right now what I'm about to do is issue a warning out to all other competitors.
I don't want overs. I just expect them to happen.
Fatty's gonna fatty is real.
He is terrible!
We gotta know how many wieners are going down these dudes' throats.
I want to go quick because I don't give a fuck about anything that's gonna happen on Saturday.
Oh, boys! Again, I wish I remember what episode number it was.
It's like 183.
I think it's more than that.
Yeah, probably.
I'm guessing it's like 383. But we are back for the MMA Analysis podcast. So instead of a UFC breakdown this week, we're going to be talking about Bellator. I know the architect of this podcast, Lance Fishel, would not be thrilled about us doing a Bellator breakdown. But, you know, it is what it is. You know, when he's not here, he's in hiding like a mafia snitch. So we're going to talk about a little bit of Bellator. You know, we got some of those UFC, old UFC guys going over the Bellator, doing their old man fights. Going to be a fun time. Wes?
Old Pride guys. Old Pride guys.
Old Pride guys.
Go back way back.
We got to go way
That's
back.
how old these motherfuckers are.
Yeah, they're old. They're definitely old.
Geriatric.
They are. So, yeah, we're going to be doing that. And we also got to talk a little bit about, let's start it off with a little bit about UFC 230. So, UFC 229 set, good card, huge main event. Now, UFC 230, there was this talk with John Jones coming back. Would he headline this? There's been multiple people now say that that's not happening. And now this whole conversation about UFC 230. And you got Nate Diaz. You know, if you keep mentioning a 165-pound title, maybe you'll get a 165-pound title. Wes, is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age of the UFC, and you know, you got guys like Conor that's running the world and getting his own shitty whiskey planted on the fucking mat, getting cross promotion and shit. Like, when have you ever seen that from the UFC? But anyways, you know, they're filling up Conor cards. Everybody wants to be on the Conor card. And like the MSG is supposed to be the mecca. Every time they go there, it's supposed to be this huge card. And I mean, it's not coming together really good. And I mean, Nate's, you know, he gets high, but he's smart. You know what I'm saying? I think he's smarter than I think a lot of people give him credit for. We was talking about those weight classes the other night, kind of on Twitter, and you know, it's already in like the rules that you can have a 165, a 175, a 185, a 195. You can have all those weight classes already if you want. It's just on the promotion if they want to have them or not. But I'm all for, though, a few extra weight classes personally. I saw some people say that they don't really get having a 165, but something in between of, you know, like 195 and stuff. I mean, I think there should be a 165 just mainly because guys are going to cut a lot of weight anyway. And I think the smaller you get, you're talking more of like percentage of body that you're cutting. You know what I'm saying? So once you're getting down to 170, 155, those guys are cutting like a tremendous amount of the percentage of their body weight. So I'm not opposed to seeing a 165. I don't want to see that shit turn into like boxing or something though, and be like every 3 pounds is a weight class. Yeah, that'll never happen in MMA. It's just it's a totally different sport. But yeah, I'm down with that. And I would have loved to see Nate and Dustin fight at 165 for a new belt. I mean, those guys are both been deserving. Poirier's been deserving of a title shot for a while now, I think. I mean, the line is kind of messed up in that division, but he's right there. He deserves a title shot. And yeah, I mean, I'm cool with that. I'd like to see that happen in the future. I think that would help some of the weight cutting problems. I know guys are still going to try to cut as much as they can and stuff, but there'll be little markers in between. I think it really helps up towards like, between 185 and 205, that's a big problem spot. As we saw one guy in the main event of the last card literally gas completely the fuck out. Even being up at 205 is just, get it done though.
I guess Wes is excited about this. New Sean, I know you as a Nate Diaz fanboy.
That's right.
He just wants to see Nate fight.
You're happy. But you love to see him fight for a title. I mean, that must have more meaning to you than just fighting, right?
Not really. Like this whole title thing is kind of played out. I mean,
it's not. Stop.
Whatever. I don't care.
A true champion ain't played out though. Like having them have it for like a fucking trinket to bump up a card is played out. You know what I'm saying? Like being a champion still means something. I think.
Yeah.
Sorry.
When you watch a boxing match and you're like scrolling through the TV and maybe you don't know who the fighters are. You see there's a belt on the line. You don't tell me you don't pay more attention if there wasn't.
Yeah, that's fair. It's fair. It's just with them, they're devaluing it with how many interims title fights and they have all the time, so that's kind of annoying. But yeah, I'm pumped about this fight. Regardless, I would like it to be 5 rounds. However you need to make it 5 rounds, I want it to be 5 rounds. It is also cool to see like both of them kind of pushing for this 165 belt and kind of flipping it on the UFC. Because the UFC does shady shit with these fighters. They like announce fights that haven't actually been signed off on to put more pressure on both sides or one side to sign the deal. And these guys are kind of flipping it on them. And now if they make some random fight that doesn't really stack up to be the main event, people will shit on it if it's not as big as a Nate Diaz and Poirier title fight. So I kind of like the play on both their sides to, stick it to the UFC a bit. And I doubt it happens for a title. Even if if it ends up being the main event, I still don't think it'll be for a title. But I think that fight deserves a 5-round slot, regardless.
Absolutely.
All right, Nushan. I'm going to ask you this question, Nushan.
Yep.
So, if the Edmonton Oilers are scheduled to play, I don't know, let's say the Toronto Maple Leafs on
fuck the Leafs, but yeah,
October 25th. They have to play them. Why should a fighter under a contract have the right to turn down a fight? Tell me.
Because this isn't a typical typical sport. This is prize fighting. You don't have to you can't. You can turn down fights. I mean, in boxing, guys do it all the time. They pick and choose to get to fight. That's the way it is. If the promotion wants to make the fight happen, give the guy more money, make it worth his while. If it's that important of a fight that they want it to get made, then make it worth the fighters worthwhile. I mean, they only have how many years of their life to give to this sport, and then they just have to go back to the normal world and get a 9-to-5 job or just ride on what they won. So I don't know. I don't have. I'm not as much of a hater of people kind of picking fights and stuff like that.
Well, I think the main difference is that if you're an athlete on a team, you're paid a salary no matter what. I mean, no matter how many games you play. If you sit out a game for rest, you're still paid,
or you're injured, you get paid, you're still...
it's a salary versus, being
you have a union.
Yeah, guaranteed contracts.
Well, the union thing, right? And then, I think especially in like the UFC, you're a contractor. Like, you work that night, you get paid. I guess that's the issue. Obviously, if you went to a salary scenario, then obviously that would be a totally different ball game, and you kind of.
With that, you get a lot of other positives to go with it, right? If you're not a contractor, you get benefits and stuff like that. So, at that point, if they weren't independent contractors, then they couldn't really turn down fights. But then they'd also be getting a bunch of other positives that they don't get right now.
I mean, we've rehashed a lot of this stuff before. Obviously, if you had less events, you would have better events, and it would be more marquee and that whole thing. So we don't need to go through that whole rehashment. But so that's one possible main event, or at least one that's kind of being mentioned.
I'm getting a bulge.
Yeah, you are, because the other possibility is, I guess since Cormier is now at heavyweight, they would do I don't know if it would be an interim 205 title or would it?
That's what they're saying.
Okay, interim. with Alex Gustafsson. Okay, I could kind of get behind that. And then there's the guy who can't apparently make weight at 185, but is just as good as anybody at 185, Yolo Romero, against Alex Gustafsson at Madison Square Garden? Oof. How do I say no? Someone tell me, how do I say no to that?
Well, this is kind of fucked because Yolo was supposed to fight at 230 before. He was supposed to fight a little drunk.
Yeah, a little
but
drunk.
Then he had to pull out because he had an eye injury. But now all of a sudden he's back, good to go. Like that, that raises some questions. Whether it
didn't little drunk have some surgery?
No, it was Yolo. It was Yolo that couldn't make that fight.
I thought after Little Drunk did something.
Yeah. I thought after Yolo couldn't make it, or Little Drunk had something worked on, but I could be wrong.
Why would you want to make that fight anyway at this point? Like, sure, it's like super exciting, and I'd love to see it, but is this really the time and the place that you want to do that particular fight?
No, it seems a bit too early, but
yeah,
the fight to do is Bones Gus.
UFC's throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks.
That's kind of exciting. I mean,
they literally throw shit out there and see what the fans react to. They absolutely do that shit.
Seems that way.
So on August 20th, Romero says that he's not fighting at UFC 230. I need 4 to 5 months to heal.
Ooh.
What day was that?
August 30th.
Yeah, it's only a month ago.
Yeah, and he's talking about you need 4 to 5 months to
surprise.
And now all of a sudden he's going to be fighting again. I don't know if I can even take this seriously. This kind of rumor that those two are going to fight. Like
that ain't happening. There's no way.
But if it happened,
it's an
and
amazing
they made it
fight.
to the cage, give me a 1 to 10 on how excited you would be about that fight.
I mean, anytime you see Yolo fight, it's damn near 10, if not higher. The dude is kind of must-watch TV just for the simple fact that he does stuff that really nobody else does. And the funny part about that is they're going to set up Gustafsson, and then he's going to pull out a week before the fight? Like, I love that dude. I love when he fights, but he's another one of these guys that doesn't. He pulls out a lot, so I think it's funny how they're trying to save a card with a guy who is known for pulling out of fights. This is going to end well. We know how this works.
Yeah, you're going to make the main event at MSG fucking Gus and Yolo. Like, yeah, that's not.
But in all honesty, like
I'm a 10 at excitement though.
Oh yeah.
If Gus actually made the walk and Yolo at 205, I'm a 10 on excitement.
Because Gus is a real fighter. Like,
yeah.
We're not
those
talking
are two of the best.
Yeah. He is a technically skilled fighter. He feels like, when he fights, you're excited he fights. I mean, he's one of those guys.
He did things to the greatest of all time that nobody else has done. I respect that. Like, I still think the GOAT won that fight. GOAT haters say he didn't. But he did things to Bones that no other person has done, man. Like, the guy was
close to doing.
He's made John Jones bleed.
Yep.
Not many guys have done that. But yes. That's pretty exciting. I have no idea if that's going to happen.
Who knows right now?
But I mean,
it's crazy. The tickets went on sale today. Like,
I kind of, I wonder how that's affecting that. But here's my thing with Nate. Nate's talked about how he's such a draw. Like, prove it to me now. Like, why not make him the main event?
He wants it.
Okay, but hypothetically, make him the main event of the card, and then let's see how many pay-per-views it sells, and let's see if he's right. Let's see if he's right. Can he sell 400,000 or 500,000 pay-per-views? Can he?
Here's a bit of conspiracy theory. So the reason he was so pissed and walked out and said that he's not fighting at 230 is because he gets pay-per-view points, but he only gets pay-per-view points, I believe, if he's the main event.
That's
and
bullshit.
So I think that's why the UFC's trying not to put him. because it is a good card. I mean, overall, it's a pretty stacked card. Whether it does good
sure.
numbers or not, who knows?
It's
But
got Rock Holton Weidman in New York. I mean, how does that? I mean, that's not.
so I kind of have a
numbers
feeling
anymore.
that they don't want him to be the main event because then they have to pay pay-per-view points, and who knows what kind of stuff he bargained when he was doing that McGregor fight deal. So it might be a lot higher, per view.
But he would sell the pay-per-view, hypothetically, of course.
I know. So maybe that doesn't make
Man,
sense, but that's kind of
nothing sells though like astronomically anymore except Conor. I mean, you gotta give the guys due. Now, I think Nate
John sells pretty damn well.
Decently, but not nothing crazy. He's a few 100,000 pay-per-view. Him in DC is what, 400,000?
No,
I mean,
that was almost $1 million.
was
I
it
think it was $1 million.
UFC 217?
We can look that up. Let's take a look if we can find it. Maybe I'm gonna guess 875.
That is. That was GSP Bisbing. Did 817 or 875?
That was 875 for UFC 217.
What
pay-per-view was Jones and
Jones Cormier too? Fuck, how do I not?
Tell me
remember
what
that?
card. Tell me what pay-per-view that was.
That was UFC 214.
214 pay-per-view buys. Let's see if I can find it.
yeah, it's still
It's
like
868. Okay, I mean we're the same freaking number here.
yeah, that's
Ernest
good.
after years. That's a lot of pay-per-views, man. How
Yeah,
many guys are selling more than that? One, two.
there's only a couple.
GSP is the only
Yeah.
guy that sells more than that,
We're
other
even
than
talking.
Connor.
Well, okay,
Him and Connor.
Triple G and Canelo did over $1 million, I think, right?
Yeah, we're talking different shit there because I mean, those guys they do shit over in the UK that MMA had never touched.
Okay, so just for a comparison point, Canelo and Triple G did 1.1 million buys the second fight. So their second fight did 1.1 million, and Jones and Cormier too did 840, 850, 860. So what, 250,000 less? That's
It's not small, but I mean,
it's not tiny. It's a big number.
But
it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
At $70 a pay-per-view, that's $60 million.
In this day and age, selling 800,000 pay-per-view buys is a big fucking deal.
Yeah,
it is.
Rarely. I mean, normal UFC pay-per-views are a few 100,000 buys.
So
300,000.
For a good card that doesn't.
I think
have
the
those big
Stipe
guys.
Cormier one did like 450, and I thought wow, that was pretty good.
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting that, but
heavyweight title fights, I think, are a little different.
Sure.
John Jones DC rematch is a little different scenario. Those are kind of scenarios that would do that. But I mean, there's still, man. What I was saying about Nate though is like, I don't know if Nate is necessarily like he'll never be a draw like that on his own, but
he thinks he is. So let him see the reality. Is my point.
Because I think he did bump up the numbers with Conor though.
Yeah,
I think
100,000.
just their feud and how they sold the fight, how good the fight was, like the rematch, like that was part of Nate. Like he deserved all the money he got in that because he did that wouldn't have sold. Like I said, I don't think he's that on his own. Absolutely not. He'll never sell pay-per-views like John Jones or GSP or Conor. But I mean, I think Sean's probably right though. I think he negotiated some shit in his contract when they was negotiating that second. They're going to try to.
I just don't get why. Like, I mean, that's a fairly big fight, and the supporting fights are a big deal. So, like, it's not like this card is that shitty for a MSG card. So, why are they looking to put an interim fucking title fight on it? Just
because they like to have a title fight on every card, every pay-per-view card. You know this by now. It's easy. That's what they do.
Yeah, especially at MSG, they want a title fight on that card.
Yeah. I mean, that should be one of their 3 biggest pay-per-views of the year.
But that's the way it goes. They do all these fight cards, and then they kind of get fucked here. Like, I mean, that's their own fault for putting on so many goddamn cards.
Wait, one thing I didn't realize: Big Madoff is back on that pay-per-view card.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, 3-year absence. Wow, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Mhm.
Anyway, sorry. So yeah, that's interesting. We'll see what happens. I honestly would like to see what kind of pay-per-view numbers Nate could potentially do on his own, because in his defense, if a number materialized that was pretty significant, he would end up doing very well for himself for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Yep.
I mean, how old is Nate? 31, 32?
Yeah, around there.
Nate's gonna be just fine, dude.
But he can be more
even
fine.
better. Yeah.
He could be more fine. He could own
Nate-
like downtown Stockton, maybe.
Nate's
He can
gonna
make more money than his brother.
Nate's gonna make more money out of fighting than he ever did in fighting. Them boys, they're in on that fucking cannabis business. They're gonna make way more money outside of fighting than he ever did in fighting. Watch.
So
But
he's going
that-
to Anthony Rumble Johnson is what you're saying.
Yeah, but they're not going to become bodybuilders.
Let me see Rumble. Holy shit, dude!
Man, what do you think Rumble weighs right now?
What, 240?
No, just
Like 272?
He's
Yeah,
that big, eh?
he's mad, dude. He's hanging out with bodybuilders and shit, dude. He was standing next to John Jones, like facing off, dude, and he just like is.
New Sean, remember how much Rumble weighed when he was fighting at heavyweight in World Series of Fighting? Like he was probably around 240 then, and he was training to fight.
Yeah, that's true.
Now he's just hanging out.
Pumping iron.
Dude, nobody balloons more than him. Well, I shouldn't say that. Mark Munoz ballooned a lot. Like,
They're close. It's neck and neck
Yeah,
right there.
I would say the two of them ballooned more than any. Well, the more I think about this, Johnny Hendricks is another one.
There's a couple fat boys running around MMA.
Johnny couldn't stay away. But we're gonna come
And
back.
he loved his beef, man. He loved his
He
beef.
ate his own self out of a restaurant. He loved beef.
He bankrupted
Shit,
himself.
man, it was a sunk cost. All that eating, man. Jeez, all those porterhouses.
His family is probably like, Jesus Christ, this is never gonna work.
Never gonna work.
Man.
So, like maybe next week when we come back for our next
We'll have an
episode,
answer.
we'll have an answer on UFC 230. If we don't, I guess we'll wait another week. That's where we are with this.
Crazy.
Should be interesting though. It's never dull. Moving on, we're gonna jump to this past week's UFC card down in Brazil. Brazil fared pretty well on this card. Definitely some interesting results. We'll start with the preliminary card. I'll rattle off the results of those 5, Fight Pass events, or fights rather. Debut of Livia Renata Souza, who did pretty well in Bellator. Just dismantled Alex Chambers, a minute and 21 seconds. Submission by guillotine. Elijah Dushku has now won 6 straight fights in the UFC. He beat Luigi Vendramini by flying knee TKO, or flying knee KO actually, in the first round. Talos Ladies retirement fight.
Jesus.
Yeah, to ladies. Decision, fair decision win over Hector Lombard. Even the judges, the judges couldn't even screw that one up. Mayra Bueno Silva, in her UFC debut, submitted Jillian Robertson by submission by armbar. And then in the final fight, a battle between two guys who are really known for their jits. The Brazilian beat the American. One of the all-time greats, Sergio Moraes, by arm triangle choke, second round. I'll start it off with, how about New Sean? We'll start it off with you. Tell me about, your thoughts on these fights as a whole, and what was your standout performance of these 5?
Pretty good fights for the preliminary card. I had the over and Souza by decision, so that was a nice and quick, easy loss. So I could just get that out of the way quick. Dos Santos, Elijah Dushku, just violence, man. That flying knee was absolutely beautiful.
6 wins in a row.
He's calling out Robbie Lawler. Holy fuck, that'd be a fun fight to watch.
I have to say, I think we're like in. I don't want to go crazy here, but I feel like there was like a time when we were like really worried about Brazilian MMA.
Yep, you're
and
right.
I feel like there's been some guys who've come along like, and not guys who just like came in like, oh, this guy's going to be a star. And they've developed
Just
into
came out
some
of nowhere
like,
and
really
grew.
solid fucking fighters, man.
You're right.
Elijah Dushku, Little Drunk. I mean, there's a bunch. Formiga obviously had a bit of pedigree. Almeida came in.
Macano.
Prospect. Yeah. Who?
Macano. There's a few of them.
Macano came out of nowhere. There's a lot. I mean, and then there's some of the women's fighters too. Like this Sousa's a really. I mean, she's good. I mean, there's no denying that.
Yep.
There's a bunch. It's a good thing, I think. Brazilian fighters bring a different kind of flair to the sport and a kind of a different skill set than you see like in your typical American fighters. So it's good for I think it's good for the sport. That's all.
And then Leighty's Lombard. What a fight! Just sad all the way around. I'll let Wes chat about that one. Jillian Robertson, the mini Canadian hype train. You know what happened to her?
It happens to every Canadian hype train.
That's right. And then I had Moraes by TKO, but that did not have a fucking chance. I thought Ben Saunders would be able to defend and it'd be more of a striking fight, but that was just absolute beauty domination on the ground by Moraes, just slowly breaking him down and getting just unreal positions, and he almost finished at the end of the first. If he had a couple more seconds there, it probably would have been over, and then finished it in the second.
All right, Wes, give me your thoughts here.
Yeah, Sousa, that was pretty awesome, man. But Chambers is just a scrub. But I'm intrigued by
F-.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ooh, I gave her an F straight. I didn't go F-, but right, I thought about it.
Fair.
She's approaching 40. If she hits 40 and is still fighting, she automatically goes to F-. Yeah, Elijah Dushku, man. Like, how's this guy the second fight on fucking Fight Pass and shit? Like, we're talking about the UFC and needing fight cards and this is your problem. You got guys like this as the second fucking fight on Fight Pass. You want people to know his name, put him on fucking TV, man. Look, he performs. That another amazing finish performance, dude. Just pure violence. Hector Lombard can go fuck himself. That dude, man. How you have a guy? Dude, he had his leg. Did you see it? His leg after that fight?
Out of it.
After the first round.
Yeah, dude. Like, how do you stop? Like in the second round, it's just like he quit. Like, you can still throw a kick every now and then. He didn't do anything, man. Robertson, she's worse than a Canadian high train. She's like, that tapped with a second left. Like, all she had to do was last 10 seconds. Old girl couldn't walk after the bell. Like, they had to take her out in a wheelchair. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what happened to her, but they had to take her out in a wheelchair. Moraes, man, that was awesome. Like, Jace, you're completely right too, dude. There's just something different about good Brazilian fighters, man. They're very gritty and tough, man, and the skills like Elijah Dushku shows, man, they have those type of skills too. MMA is better when we have good Brazilian fighters in it, and that was a hell of a performance by Moraes, and them showing each other technique after the fight in the back. That's one of the coolest things I've seen in MMA in a while, dude. Like that's why it's still. I think it's cage fighting at the end of the day, but there's still a little sport in it, man, especially when it comes to the Brazilian jiu-jitsu side of it. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing you mentioned. The jits thing is really interesting because I feel like that's still more like an art as opposed to the striking. Yeah, the striking is obviously it's combat, it's different. Like the jiu-jitsu, like the guys in the grappling game, like it's almost like it feels more like an art or like a teaching, like, you know. And Moraes obviously is not really worried about like, Ben Saunders is going to end up beating everybody in the world.
That rubber guard ain't gonna.
I mean, Sergio Moraes is a special jits.
Yeah, only guy who's lost to is Usman.
Well, that wasn't because of jiu-jitsu.
No, but I'm just saying he's a.
That's how good he is, though. He's
What's he,
like
8-1 in the UFC or something? I mean, yeah. I mean, Moraes, look, we've had kind of this conversation before, but, I mean, Moraes is, to me, a clear top 5 jiu-jitsu practitioner in the UFC. I mean, there's a guy later on this card who obviously is in that conversation, and then there's Brian Ortega as well. I think that's kind of like the clear top 3. I mean, at this point. There's a few
in there maybe, but
Jacare's in that conversation, sure.
Well, when old boy wanted to go knockout artist and start boxing,
what, Gilbert Burns?
Gilbert Burns is one as well. I would say those. Honestly, if I had to think about it, those are probably the 5 guys I would think of in terms of
lighter, who 145er, I believe.
145er.
Yeah, trains at
Brazilian
guy. What the fuck is it?
About Gilbert Burns?
Nah, lighter weight. Trains at Black House. Fuck.
Brazilian?
Black House?
Yeah, or trains with Javier Cordero and them. Man, what is his name, dude? He's a lighter weight. He's like 145. He's been around for a while now. Probably.
It's about Darius. She's not Brazilian.
Nah, God, I gotta look it up now, y'all. Go ahead. That's gonna kill me.
I'm not sure who he's referring to. I think he's talking about Gilbert Burns, but
it's not Gilbert Burns.
A jiu-jitsu practitioner who's in the UFC or in a different organization.
Yeah, but he's in the UFC. He's fucking really good, but he fucking stands up more now just because he trains with fucking Cordero and them. He's really good at it now. Hold up, he's gonna be ranked too. He's like in the top 10. God damn.
How can I not?
Newshon, you have any idea who he's talking about?
No idea.
I don't.
It's gonna look. You're gonna be like, yeah.
Featherweight?
Pedro Munoz.
He's got a good guillotine, but I don't think he's like
that's about it. He's not like do Bronx and shit like that. Like he's got a good.
I'm talking about guys that have like multiple ways to like they basically they get on the mat and they could submit you like in 12 different ways. Like
I mean credentials. 3 or 4 years.
I don't know if Brian Ortega can do that, but he's basically has 2 different ways he could submit you, and they're lethal.
Yeah.
I mean, like a Mackenzie Dern is obviously very special on the mat too. I mean, Ronda wasn't away, but it was one move. I feel like Dern is like from the women's MMA is probably the best. Just because again, like if she gets you on the mat, she has like 7-8 different ways she could submit you. If you give her a few minutes,
yeah, because her background is jiu-jitsu, so she is.
Yeah, but that's the way I grade it. Like you have to show me that you can win in several different ways on the mat. Like if it goes to the mat, like people are in trouble. It's not like there's just they just have to be able to avoid that like one opportunity. Anyway, preliminary card on TV, 4 fights. Fat Boy, Augusta Sakai, TKO'd Chase Sherman. I feel like Chase Sherman's probably been the most. I don't even know. I forget I said that. Like
he's terrible.
He is terrible. Ryan Spann, very good win over Luis.
There we go.
Nice win. Took over. Evan Dunham was looking good in his retirement fight, and then just a knee from hell. And then the one that I'd like, I feel we should talk about and spend some time on is Charles Oliveira. As Lance would say, Dubra. 10 submission wins in the UFC heading to this fight, tied with literally one of the pillars, one of the Mount Rushmores, an originator, a pioneer of the sport, a Hall of Famer, Royce Gracie, the great Royce Gracie. He surpassed him in this fight card. His 11th submission win. 11 submission wins in the UFC. For a guy who's only 28 years old. Can you freaking believe that? He's 28. He is the all-time leader in the UFC association. He could easily finish his UFC career with 17, 18, 19, maybe even 20 submission wins. This is incredible. He could shatter the record and make it a record that
can't be touched.
Maybe that may not be touched unless Brian Ortega just fights every other month and guillotines people. But But yeah, this is incredible, and I love how he reacted to this win. It was a very cool moment, and it is absolutely a crime that this was not on the main card.
Yep.
I will start off with you guys. Talk about those fights, and then obviously give your thoughts on Do Bronx and his career as a whole. I'll start with Wes.
Saki knocked out the garbage can that is Chase Sherman, and finally got us back on the winning track.
Yes,
winner.
That was a consensus winner, an easy one.
Yeah. I think we're getting a little too cute and stuff, man. And I think there's just with these MMA lads now, sometimes there's like a whole lot of value in a minus 250. You know, like what Moraes was what, like minus 240 or something at one point.
Yeah.
Like that's just crazy. You know, I mean, Saki was like minus 220 or something. Like, you got to start looking at that in some of these fights, man, because these guys should probably be more like minus 600 and shit. But yeah, nice to get that easy winner. I really liked Ryan Spann in that fight, man. I was a little worried. I mean, he's
got to work on that takedown defense.
It's bad,
cardio.
man.
Holy
Not
shit.
great.
Yeah. This was a lot of a spot bet and a line for me here. I just, the line was, Enrique is fucking horrible. I mean, he showed it again how horrible he is, and I don't think much of Ryan Spann coming out of this fight at all, man. He's got a lot to work on, but in that spot at that line, this was a great bet. Man, and then Grandpa Trinaldo, Jesus, man, you fade a guy that's retiring, especially down in Brazil against Grandpa Trinaldo. Like, come on, man, that needed a liver, dude. Holy shit, that gave me half a wood, dude. That was some nice
shit. He's
shit.
old too, isn't he? 40?
Yeah, right there, like 38, 39, something like
Going
that.
on 60.
He started late, man.
He's 40.
He's 40. He's 40 in 2 months or 1 month. Incredible.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's insane, man. You knew those guys were down there eating some special mountain yams though for these fights. USDA was taking written statements from Bones Jones. They didn't have time to get down there and do testing. Man, then Do Bronx, dude, like Jay said it, man. Like we talked about it last week, how he's, there's just a lot of people like the guy. There's some people that hate the guy over a couple, missing weight, the esophagus thing. the dude is good, man. Like, there's been few in MMA that I've seen that can snatch a neck up like Do Bronx, like straight up, man. And
there's one guy.
Yeah, that's it.
There's one other guy. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, and he doesn't have the numbers that fucking Chucky Olives has now.
That's fair.
So that's very impressive at 28 years old, man. Like Oliveira deserves some respect, man, no doubt. And man, he started talking about dropping back down to 145 again and shit. And I don't know about all that, man. He's getting older, but he's still only 28, man.
It's crazy. He's been fighting. I think he's. When did he enter? I gotta look it up. When did he first fight in the UFC? I'm gonna look it up right now. I'm gonna guess it's like 2012. That's my guess. Actually, earlier than that. He's been in the UFC since
2010.
August 2010. He beat Elkins by armbar.
Mm-hmm.
Since he was like 20. Been in the UFC since he was like 20.
Yep.
He entered the UFC at 12-0. He's now, his career record is 24-8. So he's fought 19 times in the UFC.
And fought like some of the best.
Yeah.
He's fought some of the best too. Like Do Bronx, he's always around that top 5. I mean, if he could have made weight, he probably would have got a title shot at 145 years ago. I always thought he was a problem for guys at 145. You just never know. You're always in danger. I don't care who you are. It's almost like you said of Ortega now. Ortega's been like beat up in almost every minute of every fight he's been in. You know what I'm saying?
That's not true.
No, but he has a lot of third. He's got a lot of third round come from where he snatched up.
He's yellow in that regard.
He's lost like both rounds in a lot of his fights, man, and snatched out victories. Like, but that's what I'm saying with Oliveira, 145, even at 155, man. I just think he gets bodied a little bit. Wrestlers can body him at 155, and he's a lot more dangerous at 145 with that choke. But man, I don't know if you could trust that guy going back down. We'll see though, man. Maybe he deserves that opportunity. Like setting this record and performing, maybe he deserves a shot. We'll see. Very impressive stuff.
But he's absolutely a guy that if we're planning or potentially interested in going to a fight card, and you saw him on it, that would tempt you. That would be like you'd be like, okay, I kind of want to go now, right? I mean, like he's one of those guys you want to see fight in person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Grandpa Trinaldo with the knee to the body. That I thought it was going to be a kick.
Jesus.
I called the kick to the body on last week's podcast, but it ended up being a knee, just perfectly timed. That was the third time that Dunnan's been finished from a strike to the body, so wasn't too surprised, but that was still beautiful. And then I'm an absolute idiot. I didn't do enough due diligence. I did not know that Dubronx was going for the sub record when I placed a bet on him by TKO, because there was no chance in hell he was going to grab
Wait
a
a
TKO.
second. You bet against two of the top 3 or 4 submission artists in the UFC?
Yeah, I was throwing a dirt. It was like plus 450.
One guy went to prove a point against another jiu-jitsu guy, and one guy going for a sub record.
Yeah.
I think the nerds are going to embrace you for that nerd-like play.
I know. I'm just throwing darts now, trying to catch a big number.
Are you good now? Are those your points, Nushan, on these fights?
Yeah.
Or
I call myself an idiot. That's fair. That's a good end point.
So the main card, I think we'll mention these first 2 fights together and then do the top 3 separately. So we had Randa Marcos take on Marina Rodriguez, and somehow, some way, this fight ended in a majority draw. Not only did it end in a majority draw, 2 judges, or one of the judges actually, that's not true. Wait, I think they misread it when they did the fight card. Yeah, so one judge had it from Marina Rodriguez, which I think was the right scorecard, and then 2 gave it a draw. And then, man, one of my old school favorites, or semi old school favorites, Renan Barão, is losing to UFC newcomers in his home country. Man, I really think this is like prime USADA example prime number 1. Unfortunately, he's just not the same dude. It's sad. UL by decision, split over Renan Barão. I'll ask both of you guys, who do you think won that fight? Wes, what do you think?
I mean, I thought Barão probably lost, man, and I bet on him. He's just, I don't know what to say, man. After round 1, I'm counting money. I'm like, this is easy. I told y'all motherfuckers. And then it was like, uh-oh. And he was done, man. He's completely fucking washed, man. I don't know what you do with that guy. Yeah, it's crazy, man. I don't know if it's a little bit to do with the USADA, but I think it's a couple other things too, man. Just all around, he's done.
It's hard to argue against that. Nushan.
18 of 18 media scores had it 29-28 for Ewell. It's pretty cut and dry. Barão lost. Yeah. He's so done. When you're losing to a guy like this, making his debut, you miss weight by 6 pounds.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
It's not a good look.
Fine. And then maybe in the biggest surprise of the night, and is one of I do a prop article for every post every UFC card. I think this is the top 5 prop cash of the entire year. Little Nog knocks out durable Sam Alvey in the first round. I mean, where did that come from, Wes?
Second round.
Yeah, it was second.
Second round.
Yeah, because Alvey had him hurt towards the end of the first round,
but he was doing Alvey things and doing nothing about it.
That's exactly.
I've never seen somebody in any kind of form of fighting that rocks a guy and takes 2 steps back. Alvey is the only guy I've ever seen hurt somebody, like visibly hurt a dude, staggering, and take 2 steps back and start like pumping up his fist. Like, I don't know, dude. He deserved to get knocked out, like straight up. I'm glad Alvey got that shit-eating grin knocked off his face for being a complete fucking mook, hurting some 50-year-old down in Brazil in front of all these people, dude, and you take 2 steps back. I'm glad he got knocked out.
He's so salty. He's so salty.
He's very upset.
Too bad there was no rat shit in Calcutta bet on last week's card. I think it was getting close with the way that Wes was talking, but
yep.
Yeah, I had Alvey by decision, and I mean, he was doing what I wanted him to do, doing dumb Alvey things by rocking a guy and then taking 2 steps back, as Wes said. But then he got finished by an 84-year-old little nog who can barely get out of bed. So that's fun times.
What was that prop, Jay? What was that? How big was it? Actually, I had the
was
line.
it TKO or was it round 2 that was the big prop?
Just knockout.
It was like plus 1,600 or something?
Yes. So in my article, I don't do round props. I just do whoever won by knockout, submission, or decision.
Yeah.
So otherwise, it'll get too wonky.
Yeah.
So just traditional props, and yeah, it was I think a shade over plus 1,600. It's a huge number.
Yeah. Inside the distance was plus 1075.
Jeez, that's a lot. And then the next fight was the quickest fight of the night. The first clean shot, landed.
Howboy.
And he just finished up Carlo Pedersoli Jr. It was easy. Howboy continues to be underrated, and I feel like this guy is he's in Tiger Woods territory, if you know what I mean. I'll let you comment on that. The hog analysis king.
Swanging.
Show.
And like swanging and banging. Like, I mean, the dude does have like, 6 kids by 3 different women on the same street or some shit like that.
Yep.
So,
God bless him.
Yeah, dude, like he's swanging and banging,
He's
but
spreading the seed.
I don't understand how. I saw some people throwing some small bets on Piscoli here.
Yeah, they're just throwing darts like I was, but
I
wasn't dumb enough to put it on him.
Yeah, this was a murder in waiting, dude. Like, I didn't think it was going to be like that, but close to it. That you're right, man. Howboy is underrated. I've underrated him, man. Like, he's just done some shit in fights in the past, man. Like, I don't know. Sometimes it looks like he's just not engaged after, a round when he can't take a guy out quick. But like lately, he looks really, really good, man. He's a problem at 170. That dude's big too. I mean, he's one of the biggest 170ers in the division, man. He's a problem for sure.
Somehow he made 155 a couple times. It's insane.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's like Rumble making fucking 170
yeah,
inches.
Straight up. Yeah, I had Howboy inside the distance at minus 115. I thought that was kind of a steal, so I'll take that.
Nice. Our main event. This was easily the best fight on the card. It won fight of the night. Man, both guys came in on short notice. I don't know if the fight was as good as people are claiming it to be, but it was gritty. They were going for it. But I just feel somehow, some way they have Anders and Santos is within an inch height of each other and an inch reach of each other, and I don't see how that's even possible. Santos looks so much bigger. I feel that was the difference in this fight, as ultimately he learned from Travis Brown, and those CTE elbows on the cage were brutal, and the referee had to stop it after the 3rd round, as Anders could not get back to his corner, and giving Santos the win. Wes, what were your thoughts on this one? What happens from here for these guys?
Yeah, there's a few things. I don't think it was some like fucking Triple G Canelo technical fight, but it was a fucking scrap, man. It was a really good fight. Santos's size just absolutely played a huge part in this fight. I liked a lot of things I saw out of Anders in that fight. There was a lot of things I didn't like, man. I think the dude's got all the talent in the world, but I just fear, man, that he's one of those guys that when like the bullets start flying, just all reasoning goes out the window. You know what I'm saying? And the dude just starts just scrapping, and that's not good. You know, I mean, you gotta be smarter and more technical, especially when you're fighting a monster like Santos. Like, all props to swinging with Santos and shit for as long as he did, but I mean, that size and stuff caught up to him. If he would have, I thought he went for takedowns early and got a little bit, but once Santos got up a couple times, he started standing and striking a little more, and it caught up with him. I'm looking forward to seeing Anders back down at 185. I think we'll know a whole lot more about him there, of course. But I mean, I think at the end, Anders was gassed out like really, really bad, and I know people were saying that, and I think a lot of those shots were to the side of the head, but he clean stoned him in the back of the head 3 or 4 times. It literally was never even done anything about it, and I just hate how people pick and choose, man, what they call. Like, a couple months ago, Eddie Alvarez lands a fucking downward elbow to his shoulder, and people's like, oh, yeah, that's the right call. It should have been stand up, you know. And I was like, and then he's getting blasted to like, one punch was literally directly into the back of his neck. Like, it was plain to see, and there was no call. Ref said nothing. I want more consistent. Yeah, I don't think that. I don't think that was going to cost Anders the fight, because I do think he was completely gassed at that point. He was going to be done. But I think that absolutely caused him to collapse in the middle of the cage. Like, I do think that had to played a small part in it. But Santos was going to win that fight. I mean, Anders was completely gassed. He was taking plenty of shots to the side of the head and shit, too, that were landing. But like I said, I think Anders is pretty good, and I want to see him back at 185 before I make any more judgments. And that was a great fight. Thought it was awesome.
Glad you liked it. New Sean, I'm reading right now that Tom Hardy is drawing inspiration from Conor McGregor for his upcoming Venom character. Of course he is. I'm not sure how that's even possible, but
he said the character's based on Conor. He said Venom is based on Conor.
How does that make any sense?
I have no idea. Venom is based on fucking Venom, written however fucking long ago, dude. Shut up.
Oh, man. That movie comes out one day before the Conor Habib fight. Yeah.
Trying to grab all the numbers he can.
Yep.
Yep. That's what it sounds like. Dushan, thoughts on this fight?
I'll disagree with Wes a little bit. I thought Anders had a good game plan. I just think his body failed him. I don't think he was in shape for this fight. I mean, it was last moment, and he was going up against a bigger guy. I know both of these guys were middleweights, but Santos was planning on going to 205, so he probably bulked up some more, whereas Anders just kind of came in and didn't cut weight. He was shooting the takedowns, he just couldn't get it. And when you can't get takedowns consistently and keep Santos on his back, you're usually in trouble. So I'll give Anders a little more credit. I just think his body failed him going for those takedowns, got exhausted, didn't get cracked, and then got put out pretty much with those elbows. Those are nasty elbows, and a lot of times they are. 1 or 2 of them are illegal when you throw 5 or 6, and like Wes said, there's no consistency. It's unfortunate. There's been a bunch of fights where guys get cracked in the back of the head, not even a warning.
Yep.
It's just
it happened. It's happened so many times after that Eddie Alvarez fight, and nobody says a word.
No, and it depends on what ref is reffing it. Some of them don't even are oblivious to it. Another one will be like, "Oh my god!" Just like with the Eddie Alvarez with the elbow that kind of skimmed off of him, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, would like a little more consistency. But this is
what about them bringing Herb back? What the? Fuck?
Yeah, that's another thing we should talk about. What a joke that is. Like, no repercussions. Everybody just loves Herb Dean because of who he is, but people are like, oh yeah, I saw somebody on Twitter, they're just like, oh yeah, he hasn't been that bad, this is kind of an outlier, and I'm like, what the fuck have you been watching, man? We've been on this train for a while. Herb's been fucking up a bunch of shit, and in the
Years,
last
dude.
year and going back further, but people just have very, very short-term memory problems because, they forgot that. But, yeah, Santos, I think, is going to do fairly well at light heavyweight. He'll have likely have the speed advantage, and as long as he can stay on his feet, he will do some good damage to those guys. And like Wes, it'll be good to see Anders back at the weight he should be at 185.
Yeah.
He'll dummy guys at 185.
Yeah, for sure. I like both these guys. So this was a tough fight, but good, entertaining, and that's all we can ask for in a main event, especially on short notice. Now we jump to our last portion of the podcast this week. We will talk about Bellator 206. Mousasi versus McDonald. There are 6 line fights. I think the guys want to talk about maybe the top 4 of those bouts. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The first of those is Leandro Higo, pretty talented Brazilian, taking on the hype train of hype trains, right? Aaron Pico. Does that say, Wes? The hype train?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, I think the hype is probably real. I just think it's like it's a little real, a little too fast. You know what I'm saying? Like this line's a little off to me, man. I think Pico is really, really good, man. Is really talented, and I think he's probably a future champ. But he's 22 years old, man. This is going to be his 5th fight, his first real opponent. I mean, he probably wins, but there's no goddamn way that Higo should be 4-1 dog here, and I'll take a little bit of that.
Okay, new Sean.
I think Aaron Pico is likely a future champion. He has an unreal skill set at this point. His boxing is very, very good, and obviously he has the wrestling to back it up. The only thing really holding him back right now is just experience. This is his 5th fight, like Wes said. Higo is a pretty damn good fighter. He just fought for the title his last time out, and he's fighting Aaron Pico, who's fighting his 4th fight in his career. So bit of a experience difference here. Higo has a lot of submission wins. It's going to be tough because obviously he's not going to be taking down Pico. I think he's going to hopefully be able to touch him up on the feet and get Pico to shoot. I think that's what his chance is. And then even if he gets taken down, maybe try to sweep him. I got to take a shot. Plus 415 is what it is right now. I put a half unit on Higo. The amount of experience is just so different here. I'll see it, but I would not be surprised if Pico knocks him out, and maybe even early.
I'll be quick. Higo is a professional fighter. I don't think I shouldn't say that. I don't think that's disrespectful, but he's clearly the best fighter has ever faced.
Big
by levels, by levels.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Higo's a guy who's won titles in other MMA organizations. He's just a solid fighter. He's not a world beater. I mean, he's good. I mean, he's not an elite of the elite, but he's solid. And to be a 4-1 underdog against a guy who's fought only a handful of times, no matter how talented he may be, is just wrong. So I agree with these guys. I think it's worth a shot, and that's one of our consensus bets this week. Leandro Higo by money line. And I see at 5 dimes it's currently plus 415. At other books it's plus 350, or even a little bit higher. I see Bovada's at plus 375. So, we're going to go with Leandro Higo. Some of that doggy money. 3 fights left on the card. We have a very interesting welterweight fight rematch between Brazilian Douglas Lima and Russian Andrei Koreshkov. Wes, what do you think of this rematch?
Man, this is probably the best fight on the card, man. This is a really, really good fight. Very intriguing. I was on Koreshkov in the first fight. I thought he was doing well, man, until he got caught. And up until that loss, man, that dude been just freight training guys. I hadn't lost since the Ben Askren before then. Man, I'm gonna go back to the well here. I took a little shot on the Russian here. I believe Bookmaker had it at minus 135. Played it there earlier this afternoon. I think it's a really close fight, man. But I just think Koreshkov is just a little bit better, man. And he was winning that first fight until he got caught. So small shot here, nothing big. It's a really close fight. Probably the best fight on the card, though. It's going to be awesome.
New Sean, what do you think of this big matchup?
Yeah, it's an awesome fight. The third installment to this guy. The first fight was pretty lopsided. I don't know what was going on with Douglas Lima in that fight. He was injured. He didn't give a shit. That was a pretty good beatdown by Koreshkov. And then, like Wes said, I think Koreshkov was doing fairly well in that in the second fight until he got clipped. I'll pick Koreshkov, but Douglas Lima still has that power that can change the fights, fight pretty quickly. So I expect Koreshkov to win a decision, but Lima's still dangerous.
Yeah, I'm with Koreshkov as well. I mean, I thought the first fight was a little wonky, but I think Koreshkov is the better fighter. Definitely more well-rounded, and I think the rightful guy will win this bout. I mean, I'm not ultra confident, but I do think that this price is justified even with the current with the last result. Co-main event, man, this is something, right? How many times have they fought now?
Is this
the fourth time?
Fourth or fifth, I believe.
Man, that is something else. Rampage, Vanderlei, Wes.
Look, I know we all want to joke and shit, man, but if you really want to look at some good old MMA history, go back and watch their two fights in Pride. I mean, they were two of the baddest dudes on the planet. Like Vanderlei at that time was maybe the baddest dude on the planet. Amazing fights. This here's just a shit show, dude. It's kind of sad to see, honestly, from those times and those memories. So some of my favorite MMA memories to this here. I think the first dude that ends up on his back in a round is gonna lose, like straight up. They're gonna get laid on top of. Rampage is a couple years younger. Fought more recently. Fought like the tub of shit he is, but he's got cage time recently. I think he wins this fight.
Okay then. New Sean, do you have the same thoughts or?
The two fighters coming off losses to Chael Sonnen in the fights in 2017 and 2018. That's what we're dealing with at this point. Yeah, this is going to be ugly. I'm kind of hoping that when the props come out, it's dumb and the fight goes to decisions, some plus money and maybe some big plus money, because I think this is going to get gross and sloppy and nothing's going to happen. There's going to be a bunch of cage stalling and it's just going to be gross. I'll take Rampage, I guess. Holy shit, this is going to be bad, though.
You're right. That's what's going to happen, dude. They're absolutely going to lay on each other for fucking 15 minutes.
You betcha.
I mean, I just can't see Rampage being knocked out by Vanderlei. And then from that point, I mean, is there really a way for Vanderlei? I mean, can you really see Vanderlei scoring takedowns? No. So on the feet, I think you have to give Rampage the advantage just because he's bigger and hits harder. So I'm going to go with Rampage, but I just don't care.
That's totally fair.
Yeah. Main event. This one is interesting. Definitely interesting. We got two guys who I would still say are pretty close to their prime. We got Gegard Mousasi taking on Canada what number, New Sean? Rory McDonald.
Shit, he's number one.
Wow. Ahead of GSP?
GSP's kind of semi-retired. We don't really
count him as Ahead of
UFC 's the
Shmiliano.
damn champ.
Ahead of Shmiliano Rama.
Yeah.
Ahead of Serkinov or whatever his what's his
When
name?
the hell is that guy going to fight again?
I thought you would know that.
Nah.
Ahead of the Rougeau brothers, ahead of the Laramie brothers. Woo!
He's the serial killer.
Which one?
Rory.
Oh, Rory. Oh, also known as Lance's brother, Corey Fishel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little less serial killer.
It's arguable. Wax, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, man. I honestly believe 6-8 years ago that at this present day that Roy would be the 170-pound king, man. I think a lot of people did. I mean, things haven't gone that way. The dude's still really young, man, but I fear that Roy is one of those guys that's pushing 50 in fights. I know that beak is definitely pushing 50 in fight years, because a stiff wind will break that nose anymore. I think he's in trouble here, man. I know Roy's the younger guy by age, but I just think just at this point in their career that Gegard is the younger, more up and coming guy, dude. Even being 4 years older, definite size advantage. Roy has had a problem getting taken down in the past and laying on his back. I think anywhere this fight goes, that he's probably in trouble. I think Mousasi should be actually a lot higher here. I know it's Roy McDonald. That sounds kind of crazy to say, but I don't think this fight is going to be too close. That's why I said that I thought Koreshkov and Lima was going to be the best fight on the card, because I just don't see this fight being very close. I think Mousasi gets on top at some point and crushes that nose, man. I think Roy's going to be looking like typical Roy and have blood everywhere, and Mousasi takes this fight fairly easily.
Wow. Nushan, do you think this is going to be closer than West is indicating, or no? Okay. Why?
Man, we've seen this how many times? The size difference is a big deal. Mousasi's fought at 205 a lot. Obviously, he's the champ at 185. He's been fighting there more recently, but the size difference, the power difference, it's going to be too big. And plus, you got Rory with that nose. Mousasi is a damn good striker. He doesn't really get outstruck by many people. Uriah Hall pulled it out of his ass somehow, but other than that, he dominates pretty damn good strikers. He finished Thiago Santos. Like, I just don't see this close at all. I am very big on Gegard Mousasi. I have 4 units on him. It's just going to be way too much. I think he can even take it down and possibly sub Rory, even though Rory's really, really good on the ground. There's just a big difference in size and even skill, in my opinion. Rory doesn't have that big one shot to power to change a fight, so you're telling me he's going to be able to outstrike Gegard on the feet through 5 rounds? Like, I don't see that happening. I think this is going to be a beatdown.
Yeah, so I'm looking at their size, or their listed sizes. So Gegard's 6'1" with a 76-inch reach, and Rory's 6 foot with a 76-inch reach. So, I mean, it seems a lot closer than that, but it just seems like their frames, like Gegard's way more broad, and Rory is, much more narrow-boned, and, I guess narrow is probably the best word. So there's definitely a size advantage for Gegard. He's obviously very comfortable fighting at this weight. This is his kind of natural weight. He's fought a lot of light heavyweight. As this guy said, Rory's mainly fought at 170. So that's really kind of the biggest issue. And then Nushan kind of nailed it right on the head. It's a power difference. Rory's not a power puncher. He's basically a jab guy, throws a question mark kick. That's what he does. Mm-hmm. Which makes it very hard for him to hurt people, unless he's just like pick, pop all day. Gegard can certainly strike with him. I would say he's just as technically gifted as a striker, if not more so, probably even more so. And he has a significant amount of more power than Rory has. So this is a very hard fight to see Rory win. It could be competitive at times, but I think the significant strikes are like the key strikes in this fight. They'll all fall. Almost all of them will fall to Gegard Mousasi. So I see him winning as well. I'm not sure if he'll be inside distance. Either way, Gegard to get his hand raised. And we also have a bet on Gegard Mousasi to win this fight. It's going to be an open parlay. There's a lot of juicy we're looking at for UFC 229. So we'll see how those lines move, and we'll announce which fighter will be closing that parlay with on that UFC 229 card on next week's podcast. And with that closes out our episode. Not too long of an episode this week. Some of these fights are pretty straightforward, especially with Bellator. Hopefully we'll have some resolution to UFC 230 by the time we come back next week. I think that's what we all want.
Yep.
Until then, enjoy this week's Bellator, and then next week we'll be in we'll be in the big one, talking about the great one versus,
a proper 12.
And what, we'll be in the pre-countdown to what should be the humbling. So until then, enjoy the fights.